Get ready to embrace debate. First Take starts now.
Coming up on the First Take podcast, did the refs rob the Clippers of a win against the Thunder? Plus reaction as Magic Johnson responds to Donald Sterling's comments. And will Michael Sam be allowed to just focus on football and the Rams? All that and more coming up on the First Take podcast, which starts right now. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Take. I'm Carrie Champion, sitting with the fellas. We're back. We had a day off camera yesterday, but we are back. I know you missed us. Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith. Good morning, gentlemen.
How are you?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I just want to say, Carrie, did you notice what happened yesterday? We were at a big ESPN event in New York City. One Tim Tebow, who now works for ESPN, was present back in the green room. And guess who dominated all of Tim Tebow's time? Who held court with him from start to finish? Not this guy. This guy.
This guy right here.
This guy. He's the closet Tebow fan.
Actually, that's not true. It wasn't just Tebow. There were other athletes there. I was with them, too. But I did have a wonderful time with my friend Tim Tebow.
That's what I thought.
That's what I thought.
Friend
yeah.
Tim
My friend Tim Tebow.
The truth finally comes clear.
I hope we'll get back into the NFL. I'm rooting for him.
Are you now?
Yes, I am.
Well, why don't you just make a video with him?
You know what? I keep telling you the difference between you and I. I love Tim Tebow's commercials. I think they were hilarious.
Yeah,
I really do. And I hope that he works. I hope that he gets himself together and he learns to throw better.
Okay. I was going to hold you accountable for that. So
right.
You still believe he can't throw?
He's not an NFL quarterback,
He's coming around.
But I hope that he does. I hope that my friend gets back in the NFL.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Coming up on the show today, Magic Johnson responds to Donald Sterling reluctantly. He said he'd rather focus on the playoffs, but he had to respond. We will listen to what he said, and we too will respond. Michael Sam, also introduced as a St. Louis Ram. He handles the media. We listen to that and obviously react. But first, these West Coast games are most definitely interfering with my sleep. This was a good one. OKC Thunder, folks. The Clippers OKC series is now 3-2 in favor of the Thunder. The defining moments of the 105-104 win happened in the final 2 minutes of the game. Chris Paul had 2 turnovers and fouled Westbrook. However, Doc Rivers says that wasn't the issue. He said the refs changed the game.
That's our ball. We win the game. And we got robbed because of that call. And it's clear. Everybody in the arena saw it. That's why everybody was shocked when they said Oklahoma City. That was our ball. Whether it was a foul or not, it was. But they didn't call it.
And this morning, take a look at the Oklahoman. It's different. It's not necessarily Mr. Unreliable necessarily. It is Russ skewed. Stephen A. Smith. Doc says they were robbed. Were they?
I respectfully disagree with Doc Rivers. I agree with him about the call and how it should have gone. That was clearly a foul. The referees missed that foul. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, if you're going to review it somehow, some way, it was the Clippers' ball. It should have been the Clippers' ball. And the fact that the Clippers didn't get the ball obviously perturbed them a great deal because about 11 seconds were on the shot clock. They would have had to have fouled immediately. And as a result, the Clippers possibly would have been in a position to win the game. But the reason why I say that they were not robbed, and I disagree respectfully with the great Doc Rivers, is because the game is played over the course of 48 minutes. Those final 12 minutes matter. And in the second half, Russell Westbrook had 23 points, 3 assists, and just 1 turnover. Chris Paul had 5 turnovers in the second half.
Okay.
2 pivotal turnovers, obviously, as the game waned. And not only that, he fouled Russell Westbrook. Now, you could debate and argue about, whether or not it was really a foul. It was ticky-tack and all of this other stuff. And I know old school dudes are just turning over, aghast and disgusted at how soft as cottonelle tissue the game has become. But nevertheless, Chris Paul has played in this era long enough. I have called him on many occasions a superstar point guard, and I stand by that. Just because he didn't have an ideal game takes nothing away from how I feel about him. But we have to call last night based on what we saw. And what we saw was Chris Paul. I'm never going to use the word panic because he's produced in too many clutch moments.
Sure.
It's not like he was scared or flustered or whatever. But he didn't play well when it counted most. It's just that simple. He is the floor general. And the mistakes that he was making in the waning moments of last night's game cost the Los Angeles Clippers. To Chris Paul's credit, he was on the record. He acknowledged as much. He said it. He owned it. Good for him. That's the man. That's the character that he has. Bad night for him, though, because you can't have those turnovers. Now, you finished the game with 5. All 5 of your turnovers came in the second half.
Right.
2 in the fourth quarter. He had 3 consecutive turnovers at one point in the second half. It was, to his standards, it was an abysmal performance. And more than anything else, him, Jamal Crawford, the reigning 6th man of the year, 7 for 22. Really? No. You can't shoot. You got to shoot better than that.
It was better in the second half.
Right, it was good.
You got to shoot better than that.
Right.
Blake Griffin showed up 24 and 17. But in the end, this loss is on the great Chris Paul, and in some part due to the greatness of Russell Westbrook. Bad night for Chris Paul. Very, very great second half for Russell Westbrook. And I'm not impressed with what I'm seeing from either team in terms of their sloppiness and also including Oklahoma City. I'm very disgusted because the more I watch, the more I'm praying for San Antonio to be there because they're the only team playing efficiently on both ends of the floor in terms of what we want and expect to see in an NBA Finals. The way these teams, as erratic as they've been playing, I don't want any of these guys going up against Miami. They got to play better.
So Stephen Naismith has now managed to answer both of our first 2 questions with his first answer.
There.
You did. You warned me about that, but that's fine. I'm going to go all.
That's because I never remember the second question.
I understand. That's
fine.
It's because I was going to go first on the second question, but that's okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to take us all the way back to the call.
Okay.
And I am completely with you. Doc Rivers went over the edge about this call. I was disappointed in Doc making so much of that call after the game, and I'm pretty sure he will get heavily fined for that salvo that he aimed at the referee crew last night. And I'm here to tell you that even though, let's go through the rule that a lot of people are making a big deal of. They started out on the Inside the NBA show post-game last night. They flashed it up, and we got it up again. This is number 8, Section 2, Part C, which basically says that if I have the ball in my hands and you slap my hand and I lose the ball, then it's still, it would be your ball. Right?
Thunder ball.
Okay. All right. So that would be thunder ball. But the referees did not invoke that rule when they were explaining why they ruled the way they did. They said inconclusive. I got to tell you, I've now seen about 400 replays from 3 or 4 different angles. And the more I look, I'm not dead sure that Matt Barnes didn't touch the ball last. I'm not dead sure of that. At a glance, it looks like, oh, Reggie's losing the ball after he clearly gets fouled.
I thought he did not touch the ball last.
All right. I thought maybe the ball had already exited Reggie Jackson's hands, split second, just maybe left his hand, and Matt Barnes touched the ball as he touched Reggie's empty hand. It's possible. And I could see where 3 referees would look at this and say, hey, are we 100% sure that we can overturn the call on the floor because we screwed this up, we missed it? Nope. They said we're not dead positive. So the call on the floor was Thunderball, and they said let's just stick with Thunderball. Okay, now let's go to question number 2. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Who's to blame for the Clippers collapse?
Okay, so now let's go to a long-running theme on this show, and you tried to preempt me with this, but I have told you again and again over the last 2 years, you used the word superstar in front of Chris Paul's name.
Point guard, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, does not qualify. And last night was a glaring example of why Chris Paul, in his 9 NBA seasons, has never been out of the second round of the playoffs. This is only the 3rd time he's been in the second round of the playoffs. And last night, in a pivotal Game 5, albeit in Oklahoma City, this is why, once again, you are disqualified from having the super in front of star in front of your name. Now, if you want to go to commercial superstar, I will give you that because these Chris Paul commercials are superstar commercials. I love them. They get more and more creative by the commercial. I'll give you that. But if we're talking basketball today, that was horrendous what happened to Chris Paul with a lead of 101-88. With 4 minutes left in the game, if you are a superstar, you get your team home with that win. And if you're up 7 with 49 seconds left. This is shades of up 5 with 28 seconds left in Game 6 at Miami last year for my Spurs, right?
Yes.
You're up 7 with 49 seconds left because of a jump shot you just made. You have to close that deal if you're a superstar. And let us count the ways that he did not. That play with 13 seconds left was game turning and losing because Chris Paul thinks that Russell Westbrook, I don't know if we have the video handy, is about to foul him. From three-quarters court, he goes into his exaggerated, I'm going to act like I'm shooting from three-quarters court so that maybe you'll give me 3 free throws. Russell wasn't trying to foul. Russell went for the basketball and stole the basketball, which led to the play in question that Doc went crazy about. And then what happens after that? Chris Paul inconceivably hits Russell Westbrook on the elbow as he shoots, and you said it. It was a foul. Chris said, no, I didn't foul him. Yes, he did. He hit him on the elbow because what did it produce? An air ball. It did not touch the rim. And I think Russell Westbrook, as bricks, many bricks as we've seen him shoot, I think he could at least hit the rim from there without getting hit on the elbow. And then finally, Chris Paul has one last chance to redeem himself and win the basketball game. You're only down 1 with 6 seconds left. He's got an open jumper coming off the pick right around the free throw line. And he says, no, I think I'll dribble into the lane. Did Reggie Jackson reach in and maybe hack him a little bit? Close, but you got to control the basketball. He just lost the ball. So 3 plays in a row down the stretch, and Chris called it the worst stretch of my career, to his credit. That does not absolve, just because he took the blame, does not absolve him of blame last night, because Chris Paul was at the center of a collapse that lost the series, I think, for the Clippers.
But Skip Bayless, what I'm trying to say to you is that nobody's disagreeing with your points. As a matter of fact, I made those points. My point to you is that doesn't absolve or strip him of the label. It's a bad game. There are plenty of superstars that had bad games. Kobe, LeBron, Jordan, it don't matter who it is. Everybody has a bad. This was a bad.
But all those guys,
I'm just saying.
rings.
Yeah, I understand. No. LeBron didn't have rings when he was messing up and he was still a superstar.
Okay, well, I never called him a superstar.
Well, you were lost.
No, I wasn't.
Lost.
He was.
Okay, because LeBron was a superstar.
He was Prince James.
LeBron was a super. Don't be disrespectful.
Well, he was.
LeBron
Prince
was a superstar long before he ever won a championship. That is a fact.
Superstars have to have at least one ring.
That's that. Well, then you know what?
It's why.
Barkley never had a ring. Barkley was a superstar.
You ever hear me call Charles Barkley a superstar?
You were wrong.
Please stop.
You were wrong. Please. If that's the case, then what you're saying is there's the Michael Jordans of the world, and then there's everybody else. And there's only need to be one superstar in this game, and that's it.
No.
David Robinson never won a ring until Tim Duncan arrived. Akeem Olajuwon never won a ring until Michael Jordan went into retirement the first go-round. But he was a superstar center. There have been plenty of players in NBA history and NBA annals who have been superstars without rings. You know why, Skip? Because last time we checked, this was a team game, and people don't win by themselves. Now, if you look at Chris Paul, there is no doubt he had a bad game. When you talk about that last play where he had the open jump shot, well, you know what? You got to go. He had Serge Ibaka in front of him. Serge Ibaka, who's got about 8 to 9 inches on him, okay? So, yeah, it might have seemed as if he was open, but Serge Ibaka was the one, and he thought he faked him out, then tried to drive into the lane, lost the ball, and that's how it happened. But there's no absolving Chris Paul from his performance in last night's game. But I am telling you, I've been watching basketball for a very long time, as has you. And there are plenty of stars that we have seen. I remember the great Irvin Magic Johnson, who we will talk about today, collapsing in a Game 7 of an NBA Finals. But you know what? Didn't stop him from coming back and redeeming himself
and winning
the championship. Yeah.
So he had a ring.
So I'm just saying. It happens. My only point is it happens to everybody.
It's happened regularly to Chris Paul.
No. Last night has not happened to Chris Paul.
It has happened.
Last night.
Well, I mean, that was the worst stretch of his career.
That was the worst stretch. There have been losses.
Sure.
But it is rare in the day that we have been able to look at Chris Paul and say, you lost that game. And last night, when you got a 13-point lead with 4 minutes left, you got a 7-point lead with 49 seconds left. Your point guard, who, by the way, can hit free throws, I mean, all you got to do is hold on to the ball. I mean, Chris Paul lost Game 5 last night for the Los Angeles Clippers because the quintessential floor general in today's game didn't show up when it counted. But it's an aberration. I think Chris Paul is going to wreak havoc in Game 6. I think he's going to make amends for it. And I don't think he panicked last night. I think he just didn't play well.
I didn't say he panicked.
Yeah, he just didn't play well. He just didn't, it happens. It happens. It happened to him. That's all I'm saying.
What have I called him? CP0, because he has 0 rings. It's not disrespect, it's the truth.
Yeah.
Because 9 years without a ring, not even getting out of the second round, lost Game 7 to my Spurs when they weren't all that dominant, lost Game 7 in New Orleans to the Spurs, and then got swept by the Spurs, the same Spurs who then lost 4 straight games to the Oklahoma City Thunder.
But let's stop it. But see, that's the difference between you and I, because you pay attention to the individual, I pay attention to the competition they're playing against too. I'm looking at the last 9 years. I'm thinking about LeBron James and D. Wade and Chris Bosh winning the last 2. I'm thinking about Kobe with Gasol and Bynum and those boys winning 2. I'm thinking about Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker winning theirs. I'm thinking about the Shaq Kobe era winning theirs. And it's amazing to me how you look at these guys and you see the greatness that they exude. But Chris Paul doesn't deserve greatness because it's CP0, as you so disrespectfully call him. And I'm going like this. Well, damn, who's he losing to? It ain't like he's losing games he's supposed to win.
Wait. He lost to Memphis last year. The same Memphis that got swept by the Spurs in the next round.
He lost to Memphis last year. As last time I checked, did you see the issues that they had on that team? Did you see Blake Griffin? Did you see the same Blake Griffin now that you saw? Did you see the same Blake Griffin then that you see now? What about DeAndre Jordan? Did you see that same guy now?
Tell me he's a superstar.
But I say
he should be able to overcome that.
No. You can't. When you are a 6-foot miniature point guard, I called him again. Michael Jordan, the LeBrons, the Kobes of the world, superstars, period. I call Chris Paul a superstar point guard. A point guard is somebody who is a floor general, who is an orchestrator, who runs a show. Chris Paul, to me, is one of the best in the game at that. And that's my point. Superstar. Point guard. You can't beat those other dudes when you're 6-foot point guard and you're a floor general and your other troops don't show up around you. That's not basketball. The difference is that when you got those other guys, they don't need a point guard. They can do it themselves. Kobe can play point. LeBron can play point. D. Wade can play point. Kevin Durant can play point guard. They can play point. They can play shooting guard. They can play small forward. They can defend 3 and 4 different positions. Chris Paul's a point guard. And what he does is where he's great at.
Most people call him the greatest leader in the NBA today. Do you hear that a lot? I hear it all the time.
I hear it all the time.
And you know what I see?
Last night.
I like Chris off the floor a lot. I'm just speaking real here. I see a guy who whines too much, who flops too much, who instigates too much, who tries to get under the skin of the other team too much, and doesn't lead his team enough. That was a crucial point in Chris Paul's career in the NBA, 9 years in. It's not like he's 3 or 4 years in and he's still a little wet behind the ears when it comes to the playoffs. Nope. Lots of experience, not much to show for it.
And I'm saying to you, he is going up against a guy in Kevin Durant who is the league MVP and one of the greatest scorers this league has ever seen. He is going up against a guy in Russell Westbrook who is a superstar talent, who is averaging 29, 6 and 6, who has about 3 inches on him, whose athleticism and speed and quickness as a point guard is unparalleled outside of Derrick Rose
because
by
he's
anyone
not a point
in
guard.
NBA. Okay, that's fine. But I'm saying by anybody in NBA history. So what I'm saying to you is you're looking at Chris Paul, and I'm looking at, damn, it is Russell Westbrook he's going up against. It is Kevin Durant he's going up against.
What was Durant last night?
He struggled last night.
6 for 22.
He struggled last night.
It was one of those nights when Oklahoma City on its home floor is very beatable because the MVP, the new MVP, is 6 for 22.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you're acting like somebody's absolving Chris Paul from last night's performance. I am saying to you he deserves everything that you're saying about last night. But to use last night to try and characterize his game and his career, last night was the aberration. That was not the norm for Chris Paul. A matter of fact, I doubt you'll ever see that again. He's not going to make that mistake again.
Okay, before we leave this topic, I must say one thing about Russell Westbrook.
Go ahead.
To have the guts, the courage, the clutchness to step to that free throw line by yourself with 6 seconds left in the game, and you are down 2, and you have to make 3 to win, and he makes all 3. Way to go, Russell.
He's done it before.
Big guts.
Well, it's becoming more and more clear that Donald Sterling is not happy with Magic Johnson for whatever reason. Donald Sterling's interview aired Monday, and Magic Johnson responded yesterday.
What does he do? He works with the Dodgers?
Well, he's got a
do you
business,
know what I
owns
do?
Movie
I
theaters
spend millions on giving away and helping minorities. Does he do that? That's one problem I have. Jews, when they get successful, they will help their people. And some of the African Americans, maybe I'll get in trouble again, they don't want to help anybody.
Magic Johnson shouldn't have been included in your conversation because I have nothing to do with this. But since you put me in it again, and then you want to try to disrespect me of the work that I've done in the minority community, that really makes me upset. You know, I just wish he knew the facts when he's talking. But he's a man who's upset, and he's reaching. He's reaching. He's trying to find something he can grab onto to help him save his team. And it's not going to happen.
Magic said he'd rather focus on the playoffs, but Sterling brought out his competitive side, which is why he said he basically had to respond. Stephen A., I've heard your take on this, but again, clarify your reaction.
It was sad. It was pretty pathetic on the part of Donald Sterling to reach back and in one breath talk about how he loved Magic Johnson and respected him and it was a friend, to the next minute to bring up, you know, that he has AIDS, when he doesn't, by the way. He has HIV, but not AIDS. But to bring that up and then to attack him as somebody who's not a contributor to the African American community, I think that one thing I will say is that Donald Sterling is consistent because clearly he's not fond of African Americans and he never really communicated with them because he hasn't talked to us, because he would know better. We don't feel that way about Magic Johnson. You know what an entrepreneur he has been. 24-hour fitness centers, the Burger Kings, across numerous states, the Starbucks, the Magic Johnson movie theaters. He has a lot to do with an abundance of minorities, particularly African Americans, finding employment. And I don't think that anybody can dismiss that. I can understand other entrepreneurs who are battling with him, having issues with him because they make deals and then Magic Johnson comes into the equation, throws his name into the fray and ultimately might take opportunities from them, individuals on his level that he's competing against. But last time I checked, that's the world of business. But what I got from it, it was incredibly alarming. It was vicious. It was just filled with venom and vitriol. But it was Donald Sterling, who has proven himself with every passing day to be a flaming racist. There is no other way to slice it. The man comes across as more and more disgusting every time you see him. My only regret is that I wasn't the one sitting across from him, because as much as I love and respect the work that Anderson Cooper has done throughout his illustrious career, let's just say it would have been a different interview if he was sitting across from me. There would have been some questions that would have been asked just a tad bit differently. And in the end, what it comes down to is very, very simple. You know, the NBA has to get rid of this man. It's been long enough. Where the hell is the vote on the rest of the board of governors consisting of the other 29 owners in the NBA? Where are you? LeBron James wants to know. D. Wade wants to know. Carmelo Anthony wants to know. Kevin Durant wants to know. All the players in the league that matter want to know, where are the NBA owners? Where is this vote? Because it better be unanimous. Not only had there better be a vote by the part of the NBA Board of Governors to get rid of this man. Forget the 3/4 of them that need to vote him out. The way it's going right now, nothing less than an absolute unanimous vote on the part of the NBA owners to get rid of this man will suffice. If there is one person on the NBA's Board of Governors who votes for this man to stay on, we want names. We want to know who he is. We want to know what team he owns. We want to make sure we understand you got to put your face to this vote. It can be nothing short of unanimous. And Donald Sterling, yet again, showed us why.
Although he continues to contend, he has friends around the league who would support him.
And we'll see.
I would like to see
I'd
that
like to see
publicly.
that. I want to see who it is. Don't get a private vote. No private votes.
No,
Skip.
that's why I said
we want to know who.
Sure. I agree with every point you just made. But now I'm going to give you my 2 cents worth of psychoanalysis of this man. This man is clearly not stable to me, to put it mildly. This is crazy old man talk from an 80-something-year-old man who has become a laughable PR nightmare who's gone from all-time bad to all-time worse. I don't know what's next. He may attack President Obama today. I don't know what's next. It's almost like he has an NBA death wish. Like, who else? I could go to Magic and the black community and the AIDS and the what else could you do for PR nightmare? How much worse could you get? Now, here's the why of it for me. I said it the first day after the tape broke. I sat right here, and I believe Ms. Champion agreed with me. The root of all this is jealousy.
100%.
Jealousy,
Yeah.
because he was privately recorded, without his knowledge, during a lover's quarrel in which he was clearly greatly threatened by a picture that she posted of her and Magic Johnson. He's threatened by Magic as somehow that she has now a thing for Magic Johnson. And it's very clear, as Magic said yesterday, this man is in love with V. Stiviano.
Yeah.
He's in love, and I'm not putting that mildly.
Nope.
This is not some passing affair that a rich billionaire had. Nope. He's crazy in love with her, and he's still in love. It didn't come and go because she ratted him out. You know, that's what would usually, if you were just having an affair, she was your mistress, you'd say, heck with her.
Right.
You know, onward and upward. Go ahead.
Just as a question, pause.
Oh, boy.
Are y'all trying to say that when V. Stiviano said that she was his silly rabbit, that clearly she wasn't lying?
Yeah.
She wasn't lying?
Yeah.
I mean, it appears that that's what the case is.
No, that's true.
They're in love.
Yeah.
No.
He's in love.
He's the silly rabbit.
Yeah,
you know,
right. More exactly.
Yeah.
He's the silly rabbit.
She ain't nobody
so
in love with
remember-
you taping your conversation like that. Sorry.
So remember, he has an irrational view of Magic, and so now he feels like he has to, because
Attack him.
he still wants her back.
Uh-huh.
Now, he went to the Barbara Walters interview reportedly with her, and they were going to do it together, and then they fell apart, as I read, I don't know how true all this was, in the elevator going up to the interview. Came close to doing it together because he still wants her at his side. So publicly, he's trying to belittle the man that he sees as the biggest threat.
Of course.
Now, this is irrational, but the biggest threat to his woman that he wants back.
Sure.
Magic Johnson. Okay, so how can I discredit him publicly? I can say he doesn't give enough to the black community. I can even reach for, oh yeah, he got AIDS, which he didn't get AIDS, HIV.
Right.
But he was sleeping around all
With
over
every-
the league.
girl in every city. Yeah.
Is that a good example for your children? V. Stiviano, he's like he's talking to V. Is that the guy you want to post on your Instagram?
Yeah.
I mean, this is crazy talk, but that's my psychoanalysis of a psycho man.
And it's not, you're pretty close.
You Skip, you might not be far off.
Yeah,
Man.
he's not
I mean,
far.
You're really not.
Now, this doesn't absolve him of anything.
No.
Hey, wait, just for the record. This man has been a well-documented racist for at least a decade.
A career
we know that.
racist.
He's a career racist.
Yes.
So we're not trying to discount that. I'm just saying his racism is manifesting itself publicly, aimed at Magic Johnson, the threat to his woman.
Right.
Which
he
is
sees
nuts.
it, which
Unless he believes also that Magic Johnson is trying to steal the Clippers from him, which Magic
That's
Johnson says is
possible,
utterly
yeah.
ridiculous too.
Okay.
But in the end, what it comes down to is that, clearly he's not thinking about his wife who still wants ownership of the Clippers. He's not thinking about her at all. And so now it might be about Stiviano, or it might be about his hatred for Magic Johnson. Because clearly he despises Magic Johnson. Let's just call it what it is.
Yep.
To go where he went.
Yeah.
Don't call him a friend. Don't call him somebody you respect. You
Yeah.
despise Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
That's how you feel. If you're the NBA, I totally applaud the position that Adam Silver took. The apology, not that Magic felt asked him to, not that he felt that, not that he was compelled. He just felt compelled. But you got to go a step further. I'm telling you, Skip, come on. You know where I go. You know I go to the games. You know how many players you don't know, but everybody knows I talk to players. Where's the vote? That's what everybody's saying. That's what everybody's saying. When you look, if you were at the Brooklyn game the other night, if you brought up the name Sterling, if you looked at LeBron James, his eyes get narrow. He's sitting there like this, he's just focused, he's getting ready to go to the game and all this stuff, and you said Sterling, and he goes like this. You know, and he's just looking. And he's just looking, and it's the level of hostility that the black community has towards this man at this moment in time is so palpable. It's one of those situations, Skip. You know how you're an all-in kind of guy. It's either me or them. That's how we are now about Donald
I hear
Sterling.
you, and you should
be. The owners have got to vote this man out, and I'm not going to lie to you. I was at the game the other night, Brooklyn, Miami. Spike Lee rolled up on me. When's the vote? First question out of his mouth. Where's the vote? What's taking it so long? Why is this taking so long? And I don't blame him, because I'm sitting here asking myself that same question. Call the NBA office today. That's what I need to do. We got to find out when this vote's taking place, man. This man's got to go. He's got to go.
Clearly, they have to get their legal ducks in a row.
Sure.
But it seems like we've had enough time. I'm with you. At some point pretty soon, you better, or you're going to start losing your
If the owners don't vote, I'm on the record here on First Take. If the owners do not vote soon, I cannot predict to you what the players are going to do. Now, conference finals. Finals. I cannot predict to you what they're going to do. I'm warning y'all. There had better be a vote soon, or something's going to happen. That's all I'm going to say.
The Washington Wizards are 5-1 on the road this postseason. This after they beat the brakes off the Pacers in Indiana last night, 102-79. Pacers lead the series 3-2 and have seemingly just this game reverted to Pacers of old, not necessarily in a good way. Hibbert, 4 points. Paul George, 15. We're putting the Pacers on the hook. Stephen A. Smith.
Yes.
What's wrong with them?
Everything. Everything's wrong with the Indiana Pacers.
Yes.
Let me say this. I need to give my heartfelt condolences to Larry Bird. Larry Bird has incredible, incredible heart and courage. Never backed down from anything. A champion 3 times over, an MVP 3 times over. Never folded like this. The Kevin Pritchards of the world, Donnie Walsh. I mean, when you talk about a front office that knows what they're doing, it's these guys. And to be quite honest with you, I'm tired of pointing the finger, to some degree anyway, at Frank Vogel. He was a good coach. Coming into this season, he was a good coach this season. I'm not pointing the finger at him. This is not about him. This is about the players. This was one of the most atrocious performances I have seen in quite some time. A closeout game on your own floor. Anybody could lose. That happens. They were down 30. I mean, I'm done with the Pacers. They might very well win this series. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't want them to. They don't deserve it. The kind of play that they've put forth for the vast majority of the last 2.5 months, the Indiana Pacers do not deserve to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. With the way as erratic as Washington is, Indiana might go to Washington and win tomorrow night.
Maybe.
They might pull it off. They might win tomorrow night. But I'm not going to lie to you. And you know me, outside of my social preferences, you know, the city, I'd prefer to be in South Beach than Utah. Forgive me. Okay, that's just the way it is. Okay? But what I'm saying to you is, outside of my social preferences, I don't root against teams. I might root for the Knicks because I'm a native New Yorker, but I don't root against teams. I don't want the Indiana Pacers to win. Last night they played like straight garbage. They looked horrible. They got him back. Mark Gortat, I love this guy. He's a big fan I don't know a bigger fan of this show, by the way, than him. Okay? This dude, 31 points, 16 rebounds.
13 or 15?
13 or 15 from the field. Roy Hibbert, where are you?
Oh, boy.
4 points?
Yeah.
4 points and 2 rebounds. Really? Really? Paul George, superstar, 5 of 15, 15 points. No show. No show. I'm not going to get on my man David West because he shot 500 from the field, hit 17 points, but more importantly, he plays his role, he does his job. I'm just looking at these guys. They should be ashamed of themselves. The Indiana Pacers last night were an embarrassment. They owe the city of Indianapolis an apology. I swear to you, they should give those folks refunds. They didn't show up last night. They literally took the night off. This was embarrassing. And I'm done with them. And because to me, and they was really going to make me sick, Skip, if they win this series and then they show up and be competitive against
Well, you know
Miami.
they will.
That really annoys me. That really annoys me. You know, be who you are all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. It's just a horrible performance. They got schooled by the Washington Wizards. And you know why? Because primarily, even though Washington played well, Skip, it's primarily they walked up and said, we got this. We got this. The nerve of you to have that kind of attitude the way that you've looked for the vast majority of the last 2.5 months. I really think the man with the muscles coming out his ears, David West, should start slapping these guys upside their heads. I'm serious. He should just start slapping dudes. He should be like a Charles Oakley or somebody. Just start smacking dudes around. Seriously. Somebody need to do something. This is embarrassing. It really is.
I am so with you. I am so done with the Indiana Pacers. I wish we could declare the Eastern Conference playoffs over and just give the Heat a bye into the finals. Because I don't even care if somehow the Pacers muster up some competitiveness against the Heat. I don't care. I've also seen enough. I had some other work to do last night. I'm working on a Johnny Manziel thing, and I'm doing this, and I'm thinking, I'm not that interested in the first game. I'm there for the second game.
Of course.
But I'm just kind of half watching. It's on, and I'm doing it, and it's going. And then all of a sudden in the third quarter, I said, are you kidding me? And then I just quit what I was doing because I was mesmerized mostly by this stat. Rebounds last night.
Unbelievable.
62 to 23. 62 for the visiting team to 23 for the home team in a closeout game. 62 to 20. How is that possible? Roy Hibbert? No. You get 2 rebounds. He's a stupor star, right? I mean, he's like in a stupor.
Yeah.
Like, you see what I mean? Stupor star. You know, like, well, what's wrong with it? How do you go from what he's been doing to that? And, you know, you do put super in front of Paul George's name. I'm sorry.
No, that's the latest.
I'm sorry.
I've never done that.
5 for 15.
You're saying questionable.
Yeah.
He had the potential.
Okay, he does, and I give you potential. I agree, and some nights I say, wow, that's big time, Paul, like the previous game 4, you know.
Sad because he's such a likable guy. He's such a likable guy, and he is.
They're a likable team.
And very much so. Maybe the most. It actually, man, I don't mean to sound all soft and sentimental because that ain't how I roll. But I mean, it almost breaks my heart to say this about these guys. Yeah. You can't find a nicer group of guys. Yeah. I just can't believe how awful they've been, for how long they've been this awful. If you had been the Indiana Pacers for the first 60 games, and you had been that team throughout the playoffs, and you just showed up last night, you had a bad night.
Yeah, it happened.
They've been blown out on several occasions during these playoffs. Several. This is beyond embarrassing. It really, really is. Hey, Stephen, and to get out-rebounded by almost 30...
That's impossible.
30. I mean, listen, Trevor.
No, almost 40.
That's right. 30. Not only Gortat, Trevor Ariza had more rebounds than anybody on their team, and Bradley Beal had more rebounds than anybody on their team, and Drew Gooden had more rebounds. 4 different members of the Washington Wizards had more rebounds than anybody on the Indiana Pacers, including your 7'2" center and your 6'9", 6'10" power forward. That's just embarrassing.
It got so bad. Would you believe Otto Porter actually got in the game and made his one shot that he took? Otto Porter. By the way, I was on the record before that draft. I didn't love him.
Okay.
But again.
But check this out, Skip. The other thing is, Vogel actually gave them the Monday off because they were tired.
They looked even more tired.
These are the
I
playoffs.
was exhausted.
Listen, you can get a rest from physical activity. What about the film room? I mean, listen. Listen. You ever been to one of them movie theaters when they got the reclining chairs and you can kick up and your feet can lean back? They can have these seats and they can have that in the film room and the You can't just lie. It takes physical exertion to lie back, chill, munch on some cheese doodles or something and watch some film about the Wizards. You can't do that.
Okay. Yeah.
This is the playoffs.
Okay.
Man.
I see.
Oh,
move on.
I don't want to see them.
You don't want to see them?
I really don't. I'm going to be mad if I got to cover them.
You want Miami to get a bye.
Just a bye.
Just go straight.
Just call it off.
Just call it off. We're done.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Well, let's move on to a new topic, shall we? According to our Mark Stein, the Pistons have reached a 5-year, $35 million deal with Stan Van Gundy to make him their new coach and president of basketball operations. I heard that we were countering. I heard that we were going to give him his own show. What should he know? Seriously. Here's the deal. Your reaction to this deal.
Let me say this.
Yeah.
The man's won 64% of his games as a head coach in Miami and in Orlando. He went to the Eastern Conference Finals with the Miami Heat one year. Mm-hmm. He went to the NBA Finals another year with the Orlando Magic. I'm happy for Stan Van Gundy because Stan Van Gundy can coach. Mm-hmm. I'm happy for Stan Van Gundy because Stan Van Gundy should not be without a head coaching job in the NBA. I'm happy for Jeff as well because that's his brother and he's valiantly supported his brother as he should.
Yep.
Okay? I'm happy for the Van Gundy family. He deserves to be a head coach in the NBA, but not running basketball operations. Yep. I think that's a bit excessive. I think that's a bit too much. And I don't think that his resume warrants him being the president of basketball operations. Mm-hmm. Have no problem with him being the coach. Have no problem with him having some say in player personnel.
Yep.
But to run an entire basketball franchise, again, in no way am I questioning his ability to do the job well. He's meticulous. Yep. He studied. He works hard. He cares. He may do a very good job. But I do have an issue with guys getting these jobs, Skip, just because somebody likes them.
I agree.
But he deserves the head coaching job.
Yeah, I'm with you. Stan Van Gundy is a very good basketball coach. I have always questioned his people skills. I must tell you, though I'm not the biggest Dwight Howard fan, Stan often turned me onto Dwight's side because I thought Stan was awfully hard on Dwight. And Stan often made that team too often about him instead of the players. Mm-hmm. His histrionics on the sideline, when his players mess up, he's grimacing and groaning and holding his head. Oh, my God. I don't love that about him. And I did think that team took him for a nice ride up through the playoffs into the finals with Dwight playing at a high level, and they surrounded him with the three-point shooter.
He coached his butt off.
He can. He's a really good X's and O's basketball coach. But he must have talked a great game to talk that Beverly Hills-based owner into letting him have the whole show. What a gig. $7 million a year, 5 years. That team is pretty good. It's got some potential with the two big kids in the middle. I think Stan looked at it and said, I can do some things here, but I need some security. And boy, did he ever get the security.
I want to say this about Stan Van Gundy. I personally am a fan of his.
Yeah.
I like him a great deal. And I love the fact that he cares because especially watching Detroit, remember I was at that game in Philadelphia when they were going on that 26-game losing streak about to break the record.
Yes.
And then Detroit took the night off.
Yep.
There were too many guys that showed up and looked like they didn't give a damn on too many nights. You're not getting away with that with Stan Van Gundy. So I appreciate and I applaud that. And in no way am I pointing the finger at him.
Yep.
I'm simply saying that you got that job to run a basketball operations. I don't know about that. And keep in mind also, Dwayne Wade back years ago, that wearing every game on your sleeve over the course of 82 games. That's the only problem anyone has ever had with him. That every loss weighed so heavily on him. That can wear down players. And that he's going to have to modify that just a little bit because even though the Motor City cares, At the same time, they're going to look at him just the way they look at the players, too. He's going to have to know how to manage all of that.
All right.
But he deserves, I'm glad he's back in the NBA fraternity because he never deserved to be gone.
I'm determined to be great. I'm determined to make this team, and I have every confidence in myself that I will make this team. So when I do make it, and when I put my pads on, and if somebody wants to say something, then you will see number 96 running down that field and making good big plays for this team.
Right. Michael Sam also told his jersey was the second highest selling rookie jersey. His response, quite simply, that's cool. All right, guys, Michael Sam, simple, short, his answers yesterday. Stephen A., your reaction?
I have mixed emotions about Michael Sam.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any emotions, pretty much any emotions about, you know, his sexual orientation, what his life is about. I certainly have minimal amount of questions as to his credentials as a football player. I'm going to repeat my position. I don't care what anybody says. Michael Sam was picked in the 7th round because he's gay. That's what I believe. I believe that if he had not come out and announced that he is gay, that he would have been picked in the 4th or the 5th round. I'm not saying he would have been a second or first or second round pick. I'm talking about the 4th or the 5th round. Don't tell me that the co-defensive player of the year can get picked 249th. 248 players are picked before him.
Yeah.
Dudes from Marist and Concordia and all of these other colleges.
You don't like those schools, do you?
No, I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. But I'm saying that they ain't on the level of the SEC.
No.
Okay? That's a fact. I don't want to hear that from anybody. Not that deep.
Okay.
But with that being said, I think somebody needs to say something to Michael Sam that I don't think has been said to him before. He keeps talking about how it's all about football. But that's not what we're seeing from Michael Sam. We didn't see it from him with his announcement, which most of us applauded and acknowledged was great coverage, because unlike Jason Collins, who was 34 years of age, played in the league for 12 years, 6 different teams, averaging 3.3 points, 3 rebounds a game, and was pretty much close to retirement, okay? This is a dude who has his whole future ahead of him and announced to the world that he's gay. So for him to come out before the draft, incredible coverage. Give mad props for that. Nobody's knocking that. But clearly that's not all about football. And Saturday, his reaction, and just for clarity purposes, emails, and I saw on Twitter and all of this other stuff where people were saying that I said that, you know, I didn't see it. Yeah, I saw the kiss. What I was talking about, I didn't see when I was talking to you about it. I didn't see the part with the cake in the face and all of that stuff. But I saw the initial kiss and the hug, those highlights. I didn't see the highlights. I still haven't seen the highlights of the cake in the face and all of this other stuff. What I'm saying is that that's not about football either. And that's a natural, raw emotion that he is entitled to have because any heterosexual couple may have had in that reaction. And if they got excessive with it, like I said, I would have said the same thing to him that I would have said to them, which is get a room. Because I don't care who you are, heterosexual, homosexual, whatever. Or gay, rather. I'm going to be like, look, if it's too excessive, could you do that in private? Because I don't need to be watching it. No matter who you are. But why do you feel the need to do those things? Could it be because you want to make a statement? Could it be that you want to carry that baton? You want to be prideful with it? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. What I'm saying is, I don't know how genuine you are when you say it's simply all about football. That does not appear to be the case. And if that doesn't appear to be the case, that it's all about football, and people look at you and talk to you and get the impression that you want it to be about something far more than just football, then we go back to what you said. And that is, does a team have the right to sit there and say, do we really want that kind of circus atmosphere in our training camp and in our locker rooms? See, that's where it becomes a bit dicey. So Michael Sam's going to need to think about that. He's going to need to be, if you're really, really serious about football, very, very simple. During the football season, we ain't talking about nothing but football. Don't ask me nothing else. You want to talk to me?
That's the responsibility of the media as well.
That's right. No. No.
Because they keep asking him that.
No. Our responsibility is to ask questions. You don't have to answer.
So you're saying he shouldn't answer?
Listen, we see athletes all the time that refuse to answer questions.
Okay.
What's different about you? They refuse to answer a lot of questions. You know what I'm saying? Josh Gordon came on here and talked about football. We didn't know that he knew that he might have failed the test and he's going to be banned for the year. I didn't see him volunteering that tidbit of information. You think we wouldn't have asked that question? Of course we would have asked it.
So again,
there's a bevy of questions. The media's got to ask their questions. But in the end, Michael Sam is going to have to make a decision and a statement in his actions as to whether or not he is all about football, because that's not an impression I've gotten from him, Skip.
Well said. Allow me to reiterate. I would have taken Michael Sam as early as the 3rd round. That's how good a productive football player I believe he was and will be. The St. Louis Rams stole him near the bottom of the draft. But now, it is time for Michael Sam to be a 7th round rookie draft pick and lock down on football only. I'm guessing that he is feeling a little pressure from various sections of the gay community to carry that flag as the groundbreaker that he is, the first openly gay man to play in the National Football League. That's quite an honor, and he's going to go down in history clearly as a pioneer. But the pioneer needs a little breathing room to make the football team first. And I'm just hoping, this is my little 2 cents from my distant seat here, that you back off that. Even though what I love about this kid is he is so comfortable in his own skin. He's not defensive about it.
Right.
He doesn't care about repetitive kind of questions. He'll answer the same question again and again very courteously, and he's extremely well-spoken about his sexuality. So he's a great spokesperson for gay rights, the gay movement. That's all beautiful. But first, to achieve the platform that you need to now achieve, you better make the football team. And it will be no small achievement to make this team that is loaded in the defensive line, including Aaron Donald, who's another nice steal in the draft, is only the 13th pick in the 1st round. That's how good he was. And this is a tremendous defensive line. It's a great spot for him to ease in as a special teams player only. I would be shocked if he gets many, if any, snaps as a regular pass rusher next year. So we're starting now from the bottom, long road climb to maybe not the top, but to some middle ground of being a productive NFL situational pass rusher. But I'm hoping that his constituency will back off just a little bit for a while and say, okay, the ground has been broken.
Okay.
You did what you did.
Okay.
You showed what you showed, the emotion that you spilled with your boyfriend on national TV cameras. Point taken, point made. But now it should be all about football. And you're right. It's your choice as an interviewee that when the media gathers around, you can say
no.
You can
I don't
say,
want to
hey,
answer that. Yeah.
Let's cool it for a little while here.
Okay.
Because that was my concern going in. Some teams are going to say, gee, is he going to mount a weekly soapbox in campaign for gay rights or whatever the cause of the week may be that he wants to take up? Because that could cause a distraction in the locker room, because it would cause other teammates to have to answer to, how do you feel about what Michael just said about so-and-so, right? Well, a lot of GMs and head coaches don't want that going on in the locker room, right?
This is the big point. I'm glad you brought up that last point, because I think what a lot of folks, which is why I made the points that I made the other day when we were in New York about how the gay community has to exhibit a degree of tolerance as well, from the standpoint that if people are in support of your civil rights and your civil liberties and making sure that you're not prejudiced against, that doesn't mean that they have to like or want to be around whatever kind of stuff that they want to or don't want to be around. If it's almost the equivalent of somebody, I don't, Skip doesn't have anything against homosexuals. You don't have anything against homosexuals. Right. I don't have anything against homosexuals, gay people. Yeah. I'm sorry, gay folks. I apologize. Okay? But guess what? I'm not going to a gay bar. I'm not doing that. That doesn't mean I have a problem with you. That just means that's not how I flow. And when you are so open and so demonstrative, assuming, I'm not saying he has been, but I'm saying assuming if he were to do that, what Skip point is very, very salient. It puts others in a position to have to comment about it.
Okay.
And you have to be mindful of that. And by the way, there's another important point. Nobody wants to bring this up, but damn it, I'm going to. The NFL Scouting Combine, he ran a 4.9. I don't know about y'all, but he seemed a bit sensitive when Josina Anderson asked him about that.
True.
Yeah.
He seemed a bit sensitive. Yeah. You know why? And let me tell you why how one would break that down and surmise his reaction to be. They would sit there and say, you're probably coming at me because more is expected of me because of what I came out and announced. Nope.
Yeah.
You're a football player. You ran a 4.9. That's a disappointing performance in the eyes of folks. You got to own that.
Sure.
You can't sit up there and all of a sudden get upset and think that something is happening or the inquisition and the interrogations that come your way is because of what you announced. No. It's not. It's because you're a football player. And oh, by the way, even if it was for something else, it's because you announced it. And you got to deal with that.
Yep.
You have to deal with that. You have to. So
That's good.
the way to deal with it is go out there and ball, and don't bring up. I'm not answering anything. I've said what I had to say. You know who I am. Now treat me like anybody else and judge me according to my performance. That's all he has to say. And then from that day forward, people can come to him with whatever they want.
Sure.
That ain't a football question.
Okay, allow me to sum this up by echoing a point that our Tim Hasselback made last night on SportsCenter, reacting to Michael Sam's initial press conference. He said that it's a little concerning to him that Michael Sam occasionally goes third person, as in Michael Sam calling himself Michael Sam. And it's a small concern only because you don't want to come across as taking yourself a little too seriously, Michael Sam, because you're about to go through a very humbling process on a football team where you're going to start at the bottom as a humble 7th-round rookie draft choice. Groundbreaker that you are, pioneer that you are, now you have to start over. And so it might not be the best idea to publicly refer to yourself as Michael Sam, because your teammates are going to be like, oh, you taking yourself that seriously?
Right.
And don't expect anybody to look, and if you end up not making the team.
Right.
It's because of
tough.
No. Jeff Fisher is a highly respected football man in the NFL, and they picked you. If you don't make it, it's because you weren't good enough.
Yep.
ESPN Radio.
With the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron.
Comes alive.
The NBA.
The Miami Heat have won the 2013 NBA title.
Major League Baseball.
The Boston Red Sox have won the World Series.
The Bowl Championship Series.
The tide has risen again, the 3rd time in 4 years.
You're home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
Everybody knows it was our ball. I think the bottom line is they thought it was a foul, and they made up for it. Then, in my opinion, let's take away replay. Let's take away the replay system. Because that's our ball, we win the game. And we got robbed because of that call. We have a replay system that you're supposed to look at. And I don't want to hear that they didn't have that replay. That's a bunch of crap. We still have the right to win the game if the ball says it's our ball. And that didn't happen. And that's too bad. That's too bad for us. All right? I mean, we got 2 more games to play. But that could be a series-defining call. And that's not right.
The Thunder closed game 5 on a 17-3 run. It's still a win from the Clippers last night, but the win obviously not without controversy. You see Doc Rivers very upset there. Let's talk about what exactly happened. Tim Legler now joining us. You said you were still trying to get over the shock of what happened last night. Do you believe the Clippers were robbed?
No, I don't think they were robbed. I do think that I agree with what Doc Rivers is saying from this regard. Fouls are not reviewable. So if you missed the foul call, you missed the foul call. But I haven't heard anybody try to claim that Matt Barnes got a piece of that basketball. So if that's the case and the foul's not called, then the ball should have been a Clippers ball. I do agree with that. But to just automatically say that's why they lost the game,
nah.
You can't say they were robbed because they committed so many mistakes in the last 3.5 minutes of that game to give Oklahoma City chance after chance after chance. And some incredible shot making by Durant. Three big time free throws out of Russell Westbrook later. 2 stars stepping up making shots. You allowed it to happen with your lack of game management. They had horrible possessions. Forget the Chris Paul turnovers. They had 3 or 4 possessions down the stretch where they basically were playing to let the clock run out and end up launching, contested 25-foot jump shots rather than continue to play basketball offensively when Oklahoma City had a hard time stopping you all night. You stopped doing that. Give them extra possession after extra possession. And now you put the game in the hands of call, non-call, whose ball is that? I do agree with them that if you're not going to, if there's no foul on the play, then it's got to be their basketball. I do agree with that. But the Clippers did so many things wrong to give Oklahoma City a chance to win that game. You have to put more of the blame on their team and the coaching staff for the way they managed the end of the game.
Educate me for a quick second. You said if there was no foul, meaning when Matt Barnes, you and I both believe
Correct.
he fouled
He
Reggie
absolutely
Jackson.
fouled him.
So you're saying because they didn't call a foul on that play, it should have been the Clippers' ball?
Yeah, because, okay, what I'm saying is there's no foul call.
Right.
So now they go to the replay. You can't review a foul, so they're not going to go look at it and say, oh, well, there was a foul in that play, we're going to call it now. So there's no foul. So the last person to touch the basketball is Reggie Jackson. If you're not calling a foul on that, then Reggie Jackson was the last guy to touch it.
And that's Doc Rivers' argument. Since you didn't call a foul, Reggie Jackson was the last guy to touch it.
Because the only other argument you would have would be Matt Barnes got a piece of the ball and his wrist.
And that part's reviewable. Yeah. In other words, Reggie Jackson, you could have went to the replay, not for the foul, but for Reggie Jackson.
To see if Matt Barnes tipped it with his fingertip, and then you got an argument, well, the ball came dislodged then. Did Reggie Jackson touch it again with the back of his hand? Right. If he didn't, and Matt Barnes maybe was the last guy to touch it with the tip of his finger, that never came up. Nobody's questioning whether Matt Barnes touched the basketball, so therefore Reggie Jackson was the last guy to touch the basketball.
Timeout. I think that did come up. The referees told Doc inconclusive, which means they looked at several angles, and I've probably looked at it too many times, and I might be seeing ghosts now or seeing shadows. But now I'm starting to doubt my first thought. My first flash watching it live was, obviously, Reggie Jackson was the last one to touch it. Now I'm not sure, and at the overhead, if you look straight down on it, like, did Matt's fingertip touch the ball after it left the palm of his hand? Was there some separation? And I think the refs looked at it and said, not sure, not 1,000% sure. We called it on the floor, Thunder's ball, so let's stick with Thunder's ball. So that's what they told Doc. They said, we're not sure. Well, okay, but did that lose the game? Next question. No.
No, it did not lose the game. It did not lose the game. Not with the bevy of errors the Los Angeles Clippers made in the fourth quarter. And Skip and I are going back and forth. I said one game does not define a career for a player. Right. I consider Chris Paul a superstar point guard who did not play like one last night. Period. He lost that game for the Clippers because you're the floor general. You got to run the show, and you got to make sure that those errors don't take place. Skip's argument is that, no, he ain't no superstar.
I just don't like the super in front of star.
Right.
When you're 9 years deep in your career and you still haven't gotten your team out of a second round of the playoffs. This is third time in the second round, and now it's starting to look like you're not going to get out of this second round. Well, that's not good enough in my book to put the super in front of star. He's obviously a star, but this has happened a little too often for my taste.
He focuses on the super in front of the star. Yeah. I focus on the word point guard as opposed to just superstar. Right. I'm talking about superstar point guard. You're a floor general. You run a show. And I can't think of anybody you would want more than Chris Paul in that regard. But clearly you're going up against a guy like Russell Westbrook, who some would argue is not a point guard. But he's obviously his athleticism, his speed, his ability, averaging 29, 6, and 6 in this series. Russell Westbrook is just a load to deal with.
Right. Russell Westbrook's on a different level in terms of physical tools.
That's right.
But when you're talking about safety and security and closing out a game, and you make a list of, say, the best 5 point guards in the league, when you feel like, okay, up 10, I want this guy on my side because he's going to manage it from here on out. Chris Paul's on that list.
Okay, I put him on it,
for what he did last night was so uncharacteristic of what he did last night.
It's so uncharacteristic.
And listen, not necessarily the play at the end of the game, the last pass that was stolen. Maybe missing shots that he's missed in the course of his career, but the play he made when the ball was inbounded to him and he's trying to get a 3-point foul attempt. Russell Westbrook's lunging
13 seconds left.
That play is so uncharacteristic of Chris Paul's basketball IQ.
Wait, what play?
And he alluded to it after the game. He said it's the worst play I've ever made.
He thinks Russell Westbrook's going to foul him.
Right.
3/4 court. Wait, it happened just before this. Yeah.
They're up 2. Ball's inbounded.
13 seconds left.
He thinks Westbrook's lunging out of the foul. So now he's going to try to get a 75-foot shot off to try to draw 3 free throws. You know what it is? It's overthinking the situation. Just take the foul, go make the 2 free throws, and the game is over.
But you know what bothers me about that? What bothers me about that is today's culture, the NBA. Yeah. You're looking for that because every little ticky-tack is called.
It's called, so you're trying to draw it,
That would be the same scenario. Even though 75 feet away from the basket, there's really no excuse to do it. The way the games are called in this day and age contributes to that kind of thinking. You know, Isaiah Thomas told me this years ago, and I'll never forget it. He said, what I loved about us as the bad boys, Chuck Daly would sit there and say, guard your damn man. What you looking for help for? Fight over the pick. Get in your man's face. You have that responsibility. He said, everywhere you turn in this league today, someone is always being bailed out. Everything is team. Everything is you're covering. You cover your area. Back them up. Do it. He said, no. It shreds and eviscerates the individual responsibility. And the way the game is called today, that has a lot to do with it.
Well, look at the playoffs. Look at the number of 4-point plays. Look how many guys have been fouled on 3-point shots. But this is the new, what Chris Paul tried to do, that's the new en vogue thing. You know, like at one point in the NBA, the en vogue thing was guys falling out of bounds, calling timeout. So they put an end to that. You can't leave the floor and be in the air and call a timeout falling out of bounds, because that was happening 5 times a night. So they stopped that. This is the new en vogue thing in the NBA. At the end of the game, somebody's got to try to foul me. I'm going to try to time it just right. So when you reach in, I'm going to try to throw my arms into you so I get 3 free throws instead of 2. In that particular situation, with the amount of time left in that game, just secure the basketball. You're Chris Paul. You're the point guard. You're the leader. Get the basketball. Let Russell Westbrook come foul you. Be strong. And by the way, Chris Paul is real good at selling calls. So if Russell Westbrook gets anywhere near him, just hold on to the basketball, fall to the ground. They're going to give you the 2 free throws. Go knock them down. Game over, to try to get that play. He admitted after the game. Yeah. I'll give Chris Paul credit. Boy, he stood up after that game and brought it all on himself. He didn't even really talk about the officiating. He talked about himself and the mistakes he made down the stretch, and said that was probably the dumbest play he's ever made on a basketball court.
He said it's the worst stretch of his career, and it was. But just because he took complete blame does not absolve him from blame.
But nobody's absolved.
Okay, but there's some pass giving here. Yep. Okay, just look. This was horrendous. If you're the superstar leader, and everybody says he's the greatest leader in the NBA, and I give you 100 to 88, when that's 101 to 88 with 4 minutes left, you got to get that one home. You got to get that one back to L.A. If I give you up 7 with 49 seconds, you got to close that deal. I mean, he made 3 mistakes, not just the go for 3 free throws.
He messed up badly. Nobody's absolving it from him. But you act like you've seen this before from Chris, and we haven't.
Okay. Timeout. Now you back me into a corner, so it's going to sound like I'm piling on to a man when he's very down this morning. But just for the record, Chris Paul in New Orleans went to Game 7 against a Spurs team that wasn't nearly as good as this year's Spurs team. He had on his side Tyson Chandler and your guy David West and Pasha and Mo Pete. It was a pretty good team. Game 7 at home, and he lost that game. And he did not play up to Chris Paul standards in that game. Then they got to the second round against the Spurs going back 2 years ago. Got swept by a Spurs team that was about to lose 4 straight games to the Oklahoma City Thunder after winning 1 and 2. Just for the record, it's not good. It's not superstar kind of play. He's not playing up to his reputation that he has around the league. That's just me. And this is the final point. If we can go a little bigger picture in intangibles. To me, Chris flops a lot. He whines a lot. He instigates a lot. The other teams don't like him, even though the public likes him, in part because of the great commercials that he makes. The other teams always point to him. Golden State did. It's mostly about that guy. He instigates all this. So is that superstar leadership? Not in my books yet. I haven't seen that yet from it.
Most superstars are been liked. Who liked Jordan? You feared Jordan. You respected Jordan.
Did he flop and whine?
No. Well, he did it, but Magic did. Bird to some degree.
Well, I mean,
there were stars that did that. If it worked for them.
And I think the bigger question now is with Chris Paul. Let's see what he does in Game 6. I'll be very surprised if he's not great in Game 6.
That's what Stephen A. said.
Now you're going to put it back in the situation. Game 7 on the road. Now it's a shame because they could have had a chance to close it out at home. That's not going to happen. Now let's see how good he is in Game 6. I'm guessing he's going to respond at a very high level.
I will say this.
And then you go on the road for Game 7 and roll the dice.
Skip, here's where I will give you. The State Farm commercials have elevated the profile of Chris Paul. And his star has ascended. And as a result, his game needs to as well. I think he's great. You think he's great. Most people who watch him play think he's great. But there is a level of greatness that his cachet has ascended to because of his popularity and his endorsement deals. And his game has to fall parallel with that.
Doesn't it seem like every commercial break is that commercial?
Oh, absolutely.
And now the two Stephs coming up the escalator, you know, like
Steph is ascending now.
Yeah, right.
They're transferring.
I don't know. And I love I don't get tired of them.
Yeah.
It seems like they play every commercial break.
Legs, as I call you.
Yes.
Timmy, dear friend. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you in a day or two. Skip's jealous because I call you Legs, and we.
I'm not jealous.
Okay.
I call him Timothy.
My own family calls me Legs. It's
Good.
okay.
At the end of the day, Johnny cares about winning, and Mike Pettin said it very well. Johnny, right now you're our backup quarterback. You need to act like such. And I think there is a Johnny football aura out there, and there's nothing wrong with that. It is what it is. But I think you'll see a guy that's going to come in here and go to work hard. And we were very frank with him on Friday that that's the expectations. You're the backup quarterback. This is a hard-working, blue-collar town. This isn't Hollywood. We want you to come in here and go to work and work hard and work as hard as anybody on the team. He's not the starter, okay? He's not the starter. Brian Hoyer's our starting quarterback. Johnny's the backup. They'll compete. If Johnny wins the job, fine. If not, Brian will be the quarterback. So that's the way it is, and that's the way it's been expressed to him. And I think you'll see Johnny perform that way.
There is no maybe in Haslam, okay? Cleveland is hoping to witness greatness when they drafted Johnny Manziel with the 22nd overall pick, but the Browns are saying they want Johnny Football Manziel to act like a backup. Skip Bayless, what do you make of it?
Stephen A. Smith, these quotes from the owner of the Cleveland Browns rubbed me the wrong way. I must admit to you publicly, I'm starting to fear for my boy Johnny in Cleveland, Ohio. We talked and talked and talked on this show about how whichever team took Johnny Manziel is going to have to be all in. And I am not convinced this front office and this coaching staff is even now all in on Johnny Football. There are reports from ESPNCleveland.com that on draft night, the name Teddy Bridgewater originally went on the card that was being walked up to the commissioner because about half the front office and coaching staff wanted Teddy Bridgewater, and a few others, including, finally, the owner, who might have carried the night, it sounds like, in favor of Johnny Football, said in the 11th hour, nope, send up a new card for Johnny Manziel. I ask you, Stephen A. Smith, is the city of Cleveland not 1,000% all in for Johnny Football? Has any city ever been more excited about a 22nd pick in the NFL draft than Cleveland is as we speak for Johnny Manziel? Did you see the jersey sales over the first weekend that combined RG3, Luck, and Tebow did not equal what Johnny sold, the number 2 jerseys, over the first 2 days after the Thursday night of the draft? Really? This city, it's like they won the Olympics. You know, they're having the Olympics come to Cleveland, Ohio. That's how big a deal it is. Yet, I'm not sure this coaching staff is all in for Johnny, starting maybe with Kyle Shanahan. We know what happened between Mike and Kyle Shanahan and RG3 in Washington. I don't love it. And to say, oh, we got Johnny Football, but now this ain't Hollywood, Johnny. You got to start acting like the backup. That's not why you picked Johnny Football. You want Johnny to come in and save the day, to change the face of your franchise, which he will if you go all in for Johnny. I'm not sure this is the right landing spot for Johnny Manziel.
I think you're missing the boat. You're right with what you're saying, but you're missing the boat. Johnny Football was disrespected. What did he do to deserve that? What did he do? Johnny Football conducted himself like a professional. NFL scouting combine, the pro day, the NFL draft when he had to wait and the Cleveland Browns passed on him not once but twice before grabbing him with the number 22 overall pick. Johnny Football didn't do this. And in terms of Hollywood and all of this other stuff, when has Johnny Football told anybody he's Hollywood? We've ordained him Hollywood because he's box office. He's box office because of the very reason you drafted him, because he was a playmaker on the highest levels of college football. That's why he got drafted. That's why he's Hollywood. Johnny Football didn't do anything to deserve this. And so the fact that you would feel the need to publicly display such sentiments, you basically said, look, boy, stay in your place.
Yep.
But when has Johnny Football tried to be out of place? There is nothing that he has said or has done that warrants the owner for the Cleveland Browns to treat him in a fashion you have treated nobody else that you drafted. Johnny Football is a victim of his own greatness as a college football player. Whether you want to say he's a first rounder or he wasn't the best quarterback in the draft or whatever feelings you have about him, he did nothing as a football player to warrant what this owner said. If you felt that way about him, why don't you kick rocks and go draft somebody else?
Yep.
What'd you draft him for? It's wrong that this owner feels, as far as I'm concerned, this owner's trying to be Hollywood.
Yep.
Because why do you feel the need to come out and denigrate this guy? Because that's what he did. You're the backup quarterback. So in other words, don't bother competing. You're the backup. Yeah, just concentrate on being number 2. So if I go into the camp and I outplay your number 1 guy, don't worry about it. I'm saying you're still a backup. So know your place. And then this is a hard-working blue-collar town. I'm sorry. What's College Station? What's Texas A&M?
Right.
You understand what? They don't work hard there?
Yeah.
There are no blue-collar workers there? Really? Everybody. Are you holding this oil money against them, Mr. Billionaire Hassler? I mean, what are you doing? So that's point number 2. And then point number 3, this isn't Hollywood. I assure you, nobody would confuse Cleveland, Ohio with Hollywood.
Even LeBron James.
Even
would,
LeBron
right?
James. Okay? And sure enough, not Kyrie Irving.
Nope.
So the point is, that wasn't necessary.
Right.
It wasn't necessary,
Stephen
and it was
A.
very disrespectful.
I know for a fact, trust me on this, Johnny wanted to play for the Cleveland Browns. How many potential stars want to play in Cleveland? And Teddy Bridgewater said yesterday in a radio interview, I really didn't want to play for the Browns. He's a Viking. God bless him. But God bless Cleveland and the Browns because they got a kid who's a potential star who wants to be there, and they're saying, yeah, but get in line. Act like a backup.
Act like a backup.
Yeah.
Think about that. So in other words, I can be Ryan Mallett.
Yeah.
Let me just work hard, be ready for the preseason, and be ready to hold the clipboard. That's what you want my aspiration to be.
Yep.
What kind of an owner says that?
What kind of an organization?
I love
It's
Look
ridiculous.
At this, you can't even take it.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It really is.
You may remember Richard Sherman agreed to a 4-year, $57 million deal. That was an extension with the Seahawks last week. $40 million of that guaranteed. Guaranteed. Well, Cardinals star cornerback Patrick Peterson was asked if he thinks he's worth the same. We'll see, he says. Got to ask the Cardinals. I mean, I think I am. But at the end of the day, both sides have to agree to terms, and we'll see what those terms are, and hopefully sooner than later. Sherman noticed what his division rival said and tweeted the following. Want what I got? Get the stats I got. Least targeted. Hashtag opinion versus fact. You mad, bro? Sherman versus Peterson. Whose side are you on, Skip?
Stephen A. Smith, let's be clear about this. Last year became the year of Richard Sherman. He talked and he backed it up. The play he made to save the NFC Championship game was a play for the ages, even if it wasn't the greatest throw from Colin Kaepernick.
Right.
But he made the play, and they made a whole bunch of plays against Peyton and company. It was a beatdown. They got, to quote my friend Stephen A. Smith, straight up punked in the Super Bowl. I'm not sure they're going to recover from such a beating, but here's my point. This is why I lean toward Patrick Peterson. I said before his draft he would be the best player picked in his draft. And this is a bad man now playing in the shadows in Arizona. For the record now, he does not have an Earl Thomas and a Cam Chancellor to sort of back him up. He can't lean on them to control the middle of the football field to discourage any receivers from even attempting to go over the middle of the football field. Patrick Peterson is 6 feet tall and 220 pounds. And just in a vacuum, I think he's a superior total package athlete to Richard Sherman. Total package. This man is big, strong, and very fast. As a rookie, as you know, he had 4 punt returns for touchdowns. So just in a vacuum, I think total package, I think he could ultimately end up being a little better than Richard Sherman, but he hasn't backed it up. And Richard has these stats. But it's funny, Richard's relying on the negative stat of I'm least targeted. You know, like nobody throws at me. I don't even know if there's a number for that. How many times were you not thrown at? Well, I don't know. But after a while, people were afraid to throw at Richard Sherman. He's got the stats. He backed it up. But I don't doubt that long-term, Patrick can be better than Richard Sherman because I just think he's a little more gifted than Richard.
Patrick Peterson only had 3 interceptions to Richard Sherman's 8.
Had 7 the year before, though.
You can make the argument that Patrick Peterson deserves some money comparable to that of Richard Sherman because of his versatility, what he could do in special teams as well.
And remember, he even caught 6 balls last year.
Exactly. He caught 6 balls last year. He plays on special teams, so he doesn't just play corner.
Yeah.
Okay? But because Richard Sherman is a Super Bowl champion, because he had to go through what he had to go through to prove himself, because, you know, he's so important. See, I look at the Cam Chancellors and the Earl Thomases, and the fact that Richard Sherman is still able to stand out speaks volumes for me, which is why I'm going to flow with Richard Sherman in this argument. Not to say that you're wrong, because Peterson is all world, and there's no doubt what he can do, and he's versatile. And I think the money that he deserves, it should be in the ballpark of a Richard Sherman.
Yep.
There's no question. My only issue with my man Richard Sherman, and put this camera on me, please.
Uh-oh.
Why do you have to? This is none of your business. You're talking about a man's money here. Come on, Richard. You know what I'm saying? I mean, listen, I like Richard Sherman. You know that. But my point is, you're stepping over the line. Come on now. There's nothing in this quote where this man said anything to begrudge Richard Sherman. When Richard Sherman has called out other dudes in the past, I didn't mind that because they instigated it. They brought his name up. You understand? Well, if they brought somebody else's name up, they also questioned him. So I understand having that proverbial chip on your shoulder. What did Patrick Peterson say about this man? I'm going to read this quote again.
Read it, darling.
We'll see. Got to ask the Cardinals. I mean, I think I am, but at the end of the day, both sides have to agree to terms, and we'll see what those terms are, and hopefully sooner than later. There is not a scintilla, a speck of any kind of illusion whatsoever to Richard Sherman. He isn't disrespecting Richard Sherman. He isn't doing anything. But you're going to come out and you're going to say something about him where you could potentially mess with his money? Why would you do that? For what, Richard? For what?
Is he refueling for next year?
I'm just saying.
He's trying to get.
Skip, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that I'm going to pull out the brother card.
Okay, do it.
Especially when it comes to the brothers. You don't mess with dude's money. You see what I'm saying? It's like you want to go up against him. You want to compete with him. But because of all the things that we go through in life, which Richard Sherman can speak to better than most folks, you know, from Compton to Stanford, from Stanford to the NFL, and having the 22 dudes picked ahead of him in this position. I mean, all of this other stuff. Let's be clear. You know the path that you had to take, and you can relate to what Patrick Peterson had to take. The dude can ball. We know this. He's highly skilled. He's competitive. Why are you coming out at this dude and messing with his money?
I don't think, in Richard's view, it was about the money. It's about being the best cornerback.
I understand that, Skip, but that's a comment that could have been saved once the contract is signed.
Right.
You could have waited.
Don't put any doubt.
But you're gonna put it out there when this man's team is at the table trying to get him his money. Come on, man. You got to know better than that. I mean, there is a level of core decency. Core decency in this regard. I love me some Richard Sherman. I love how he performs. You know, I love the fact that he's got that chip on his shoulder and backed it up. Not disrespecting this man. And I think that the education that he has received and the manner in which he has gone about achieving it, he's an incredible role model. But you got to know better than this. You can't be that selfish where you feel the need to come out at this guy right at the time he's trying to get his money.
Okay, but to me, bigger picture, what Richard does is almost Jordan-esque in that he creates motivation. Like he's looking for new, even tricking it
That's
up a little
fine.
bit.
And my response to it is
Yeah.
this. Michael Jordan messed with people's heads.
He did.
He messed with their minds.
Sure.
He went about the business of demoralizing and conquering them. Michael Jordan never, ever, ever in his entire career messed with anyone while they were trying to get their money. It doesn't happen.
It's a bro code. I get it.
Understood
Sure.
code. And Richard Sherman just broke it.
Okay.
All-Pro wideout Andre Johnson has been with the Texans since being drafted by the team in the first round of the 2003 draft, but now the star receiver says it might be time to move on.
When you've been somewhere for a long time, nobody has been here as long as I have. So, you just kind of, look at things. I've been thinking about things this off season, and, I just, kind of wonder is, sometimes is this still a place for me? So it's just something I'm just thinking about. And, I haven't, went to anybody about a contract, or I haven't came out and asked for a trade or anything like that, but it's just something that I'm just thinking about right now.
Now, you have a problem with what he said?
Not a little bit. I loved it. Bravo. I've been waiting for him. That's my man. I love him. I've been waiting for him. I've been on his case. I'm gonna tip you off to something privately. Every time Andre Johnson sees me, we see each other at a basketball game a lot. He always goes, oh no, because I always go to, when you leaving Houston? When are you getting the hell out of there?
Well, you did this to him on air.
I did it on air
You did
again.
it on
And
the
I'm
show
doing it
last
again.
year.
Now, mind you, I will say I'll modify my position in this degree. I like Bill O'Brien.
Yep.
And I believe in him, and I think he'll do a good job. Because of him, and I like the GM Rick Smith. Because of them, I might modify it. But in terms of the Texans, and in terms of the coach, Gary Kubiak, thank the good Lord he's gone, okay? And Matt Schaub, okay? I mean, give me a break. In the last 6 seasons, 1 year, which was 2011, he only played 7 games, Skip. So he only had like 492 yards, 7 games. The other 5 years, the last 5 years, other than that one season, 3 of them, this dude has had at least 1,500 yards receiving. Last year was 1,407 yards. This dude is a stud. He's elite, and he has not been given the supporting cast he deserves. Owen Daniels and DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, listen, I'm not trying to disrespect them because they could play, but they're not on this guy's level. This guy needs to be in a better environment, and I'm hoping that Bill O'Brien provides it. But if he doesn't, he needs to skip town. He's putting the Texans on notice. Could you look out for a brother? I've been producing for y'all. Could you help me?
Yeah. And remember, this brother is going to play next year at 33 years of age.
That's right.
His 12th NFL
Still
season.
ball.
And they did not take Johnny Football with the first overall pick.
Right.
So all of a sudden, he's going to go from Matt Schaub to Ryan Fitzpatrick, or Case Keenum, who was fun for a while, or T.J. Yates, or maybe that kid Tom Savage drafted in the 4th.
my goodness.
I mean, it's just, I feel sorry for him.
Yes,
because
I do too.
He deserves better. He deserves a last hurrah somewhere else. And I doubt
him and Arian Foster.
Okay.
They both deserve better. They really do. They really do. They both deserve better. They both deserve better. And I think Bill O'Brien can give it to them. But they haven't. I mean, they lost 14 games in a row last year, man. End of the season. I mean, you understand? They've been miserable since last September.
But how many more years does Andre have? 2?
Not many.
3? Maybe?
Andre, we obviously support you here on the show
we do.
and your decision.
Bravo!
Skip Bayless and Steve
About time.
I'm Carrie Champion.
Time.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. Tomorrow, NBA great Isaiah Thomas will join the show. You can catch First Take 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific on ESPN2.